What's going on, Packers fans? Welcome into a Tuesday edition of Pack-A-Day Happy Hour. Hopefully you can still enjoy a beverage or a Luigi's Pizza or something for happy hour today. Appreciate you taking some time out of your day to join me on a Tuesday. This is my last thing to record before I go on vacation tomorrow. Just got done with the Paul Farrington Show boys for tomorrow's show, which should be uploaded a little bit later tonight. For those of you who are members, it'll be up for everyone tomorrow. For everyone else, and then we've got a whole week of shows already out there for everyone as well for the next week or so. I'll be back next Monday, technically, but Tuesday we'll start recording shows again. Again, thank you for taking some time out of your day. We are sponsored today and presented today by Luiges Pizza. Cannot recommend Luiges Pizza enough. An absolutely delicious pizza every single time. Find them in the freezer section of your local grocer. These frozen pizzas do not taste like frozen pizza. They taste like pub-style pizzas. Wisconsin mozzarella, robust tomato sauce. Get your favorite flavors. They've got a variety. They've got a bunch of different versions of it. They've got garlic dippers. They got cheese fry, whatever you want. It is all amazing. Check them out when you have a chance at Luiges Pizza. And of course, luigespizza.com as well. We'll get to about as many questions as I can over the course of the next hour or so. Then I got to head out. But yeah, let's get to your questions right away and go from there. Of course, before you get there, Goody did talk today. Not uploaded by the Packers or not recorded by the Packers. So just kind of going by those who were there. Didn't seem like there were any major takeaways other than I know that there was the comments a couple years back of Aaron Jones is the heart and soul of the team and everything like that. But it seems like he's very adamant about Josh Jacobs being back and being the focal point of the running game next year. So that was kind of one big takeaway. It does sound like he's doubling and tripling down as well, that the Rich Bisaccia thing was out of their control. It was interesting that he said, to pursue other opportunities or something like that, which is an interesting dynamic because they didn't have to let him do that. And again, maybe they won't if he wants there's no other special teams coordinator openings unless he wants to go to college or something. I don't know. I have no idea. That's going to be interesting, but there seems to be maybe something a little bit there. And it was interesting too, that Rich kind of was considering some of this last offseason. So maybe something a little bit hidden underneath there, but it does not seem like it was a Packers decision. It does feel like it was a Rich Bisaccia decision. That's some of the whispers I've heard a little bit behind the scenes as well. So that's interesting, but it didn't seem like there was too much else from Goody that was that noteworthy, to be honest. But if other stuff comes out, I would say I will cover it, but I won't because I'm going to be out. So, maybe in a week or so we can recap everything. But I'm sure the rest of the folks at the Pack-A-Day podcast on the audio side will be updating you, and I'll be definitely uploading those videos every single day. All right, or audio, I should say, every single day. All right, let's start with the Dakota Fire. Andy, what happens next season if Morgan and Belton don't take a step? What would you do once the season has started if that's the case? Dakota, the truth is that you can't really do anything once the season starts if that's the case. You can't replace two starting offensive linemen, and it's really hard to find even one good offensive lineman that can take anybody's place in season. It's a reason why Quay Walker is about to go for 20-some million, despite him not being a great tackle. It's because you cannot find these guys. It is so hard to find offensive linemen. So if you don't get your guys in free agency and in the draft, good freaking luck, because you just can't find them mid-season. So if you get into the regular season and you're counting on Morgan, Banks, maybe a new center, or maybe Sean Ryan or whoever it might be at center, Belton and Zach Tom, and Belton and Morgan just suck or can't hang and can't do well, you're probably just screwed. 2026 is probably over. So it is paramount that you get that entire line functioning the way that it needs to, and that you do build in some depth and options elsewhere, whether that be getting Travis Glover up to speed, maybe John Williams can do something, maybe Jacob Monk can take a step, whether it's re-signing a Darian Kennard and hopefully you can get him to improve, or whether it's drafting another offensive lineman or two and maybe they can come in and play well, or maybe it's signing some really nice depth pieces or some competition pieces. Whatever it is, you'd better make sure that you stack as many offensive linemen as you can, because you're going to need them and you can't find them in season. Now, next year, you would probably have to have a real legitimate discussion of, hey, what do we do here? One thing you could try, Dakota, if you were in season and just had no other options, you could try to move some pieces around. Jordan Morgan was pretty darn good at right tackle last year, so you could try him at right tackle, maybe put Zach Tom at left and see if that fixes some things. I don't think it does, but you could try it. Maybe you have to bench Belton. Maybe it ends up being a new center and Banks at left guard, and maybe Travis Glover comes in at right guard. You can try some things. You can throw some things at the wall, but in all likelihood, you're probably just screwed if Belton and Morgan aren't good and you don't have other options to kind of replace them. Would the Packers bother doing any prep or due diligence on them? Alex? Oh, maybe this was out of order. I know it won't happen, but I'm all in on your trade idea with the Jags for Jones and Brian Thomas. Love throwing to Watson, Golden, Thomas, and Kraft would be deadly. Got my hopes up for nothing. And maybe that's what the Packers are doing, any due diligence on them. I'm not sure, but I doubt it. Those are fun hypotheticals, fun discussion points, but I'd be pretty stunned if there was a trade for Brian Thomas and Jerry and Jones or either of them. But if Brian Thomas became available and Green Bay found it out, I do think they'd at least inquire, like, hey, what is this going to take? What can we do here? And I do actually think a Jayden Reed, Brian Thomas kind of swap with probably Green Bay having to give a little bit more. I do think it's interesting because they would probably like to play even Watson, Wicks and Golden in the slot more because they all can do it. Kraft in the slot. You have plenty of guys who can play in the slot, but giving you two outside guys in Brian Thomas Jr. and Christian Watson who can streak down the field and separate. And it gives you Watson insurance too if he does have an injury where, well, hey, great, Brian Thomas Jr. can just do exactly that. It is interesting, but the odds that anything actually done in that direction are probably very slim. And no word on a Jonathan Gannon press conference yet, which is frustrating, but hopefully we get one soon. Appreciate the content every day, Andy. May have been a little tipsy and angry after the playoff collapse that made me finally subscribe, but glad I did. 100% worth it. Enjoy your well-deserved vacation. Alex, maybe get a little more tipsy and, upgrade that subscribe or membership, I should say, and whatever. But no, I'm just kidding. I appreciate you a ton. And thanks so much for being here. I really hate your prediction about Rashan Gary coming back. Please no, please no. To be clear again, John, I don't think he will be. They're bold predictions for a reason. I think he will be gone. If it's up to me, which it's not, probably thankfully, Green Bay would be moving on in that situation. And again, I think the more likely scenario is that Rashan Gary is not on this team. I'm just saying Elton feels like a foregone conclusion, and it probably feels that way with Gary. I don't think it's quite as much of a foregone conclusion with Gary for all the reasons that I mentioned. But if I were gambling on it right now or betting on it right now, I would say more likely that Gary is gone. You said the Packers defensive tackle room only needed a starting nose. Disagree. Need two nose tackles. Stackhouse was awful, and Brinson Wooden should play very limited snaps there. Stackhouse isn't it. Practice squad level. Sign one, draft one. John, it depends, I guess, a little bit to me on if they're playing 3-4 or 4-3. If they're playing 3-4, then I can see your argument that, yes, they probably need two noses because I don't think anybody outside of whoever that first edition would be, I don't think anybody else can play that legitimately. So I would agree with you there. If you're talking about they're staying in a 4-3, then to me, what we saw from Wooden last year is kind of more the run stopping tackle is good enough if he doesn't have to be the main guy. Then I'm cool with him doing that and maybe Stackhouse pitching in a little bit more here and there too. That I can get by a little bit more. But if they aren't a 3-4, then yes, you probably need two additions instead of one. And that's why, to me, I would love to see them stay in a 4-3 if they could, just because I think their roster's set up a little bit better for it. And trying to find one really good run stuffing defensive tackle is hard enough right now. Trying to find two is probably a little bit of a nightmare. Really hope the Packers don't have any international games this year. 9 true home games and no international travel is a real advantage. It is, but we're coming close to the point of probably having just about every team playing international at some point throughout the season. And you probably have 20 plus teams that are going to be traveling international this year at some point. So it's just something we got to get used to. It is what it is. Some teams will have slight advantages, some will have slight disadvantages, and you got to work through it. It's like anything else. So I'd be excited to go depending on where they go internationally and watch those games. I think they have the ability to be very fun, great for fans overseas, but it does certainly give you an advantage if you don't have to do it. Andy, happy Tuesday. Hope you have a great trip. Appreciate you, my friend. I'm still a big CJ West guy and wouldn't mind getting him from the Niners for Wicks or Reed, then Brooks and picks for Sweat, and we are set at nose tackle. Sure. I'm not as big on West, so I probably wouldn't do that. The first trade that you're mentioning, but we've talked about Brooks and a pick for Sweat, and I would be certainly all in. I think that would go a really long way in improving your defensive tackle rotation. If Kraft didn't get hurt, we may have been able to get Brian Thomas Jr. in the Musgrave Dobbs trade. If they don't want him because of Myers and Parker Washington, we should do whatever we can to free him. It'd be fun. It'd be really fun. And again, I do think a Reed for Thomas Jr. Again, you'd have to give up something a little bit more. I think if you're Green Bay, not necessarily because there's a huge difference in talent, but because Brian Thomas Jr. has 2 years and a 5th-year option on his deal remaining, and Reed just has 1 year on his deal remaining. So that's the big difference there. The Packers have marketing rights in Ireland and other countries, but what exactly does that mean? It's just kind of some, kind of collaboration stuff. I honestly haven't looked into it that much. It's not anything that is of, super huge, consequence one way or the other, but I think it's more of like kind of marketing rights and things like that. And Dyer Carragher has brought up a really, really interesting point. Now, it's not Ireland. I do get that, but he brought this up a couple weeks ago, and it is sort of interesting now with the Lions playing in Germany. Just bringing this up really quick here. Carragher said, my bold guess is that we see the Packers double up in Europe in 2026. First playing host in London to either the Texans or the Dolphins, and then 1 week later traveling to Munich to face the Buccaneers or the Lions. Yes, seriously, in Detroit or in Germany. With Detroit being in Germany, Green Bay could go there, and Green Bay could host a game in London either the week before or the week after. You could get Packers Dolphins or Packers Texans. Packers Dolphins in London, followed by Packers Lions in Germany, and then a bye week after that. You could theoretically have something like that happen. Might sound crazy, but it's within the realm of possibility. We've seen teams stay overseas in Europe to play back-to-backs in the past. I think it just happened last year. And if that would get you out of 3 years of international after that or something, maybe it could be worth it just to do it in one fell swoop, play a home and away in Europe all in 1 2 week period. It's an interesting concept. We'll see if it happens or not. Goody confirmed that bigger offensive lineman was an intentional focus. Kind of thought the team had been exploiting an inefficiency of smaller athletic guys with good fundamentals. Maybe this approach isn't great. I think the approach is fine. They just got to hit on the players. So far Banks and Belton haven't been good enough. I mean, getting bigger of guys that are agile and can move and have some strength and, a little bit of, little bit more muscle behind it. That's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing at all. You just need better play from Belton and Banks. And if they get it, then awesome. It could work very well. If they don't get it, then it ends up being a pretty big problem. Last year, it ended up being a problem. 2 guys I want to ask you about Mekhi Becton if he gets cut, and what about a trade for Creed Humphrey? If the Chiefs are open to a trade for Creed Humphrey, I don't think there's any way that they would be, but you could discuss it. But I mean, he probably goes for something pretty significant. So I don't see that happening. Becton was by God awful last year, just beyond awful. And that was coming off his best season with the Eagles and then going to the Chargers, who have, it's the Harbaugh run style system. They've done great, job, not necessarily with the Chargers, but in years past of bringing in big offensive linemen and having them work in that system. And Becton was just terrible. I mean, just god awful. So I would hard pass on Mekhi Becton. If you could get Humphrey, great, but I don't see it happening. Be able to find out what was the Packers' average starting field position last year and where does that rank? Seems like we were constantly losing the hitting yards battle. Let's see if I can find it quick. Let's see. Don't think. Yeah, I don't think I have it. At least it's not coming up easily. Okay, here. Okay, this was through week 11 last year is the best one I can find, at least off the top. The Packers, but that was off of kick returns. That was off of kick returns only. They were, the average starting position was the 29-yard line. 49ers were best at the 34.5-yard line. Falcons were worse at the 27.2-yard line. So that was through week 11, just on kick returns last year. I'd have to research a little bit further, but I'm sure Green Bay did not do well with it. Keontae, thank you so much for being a member for 21 months. I know that, but would you sign Bobby Wagner to a 1-year deal? Price obviously matters, but I don't think it would hurt to get a veteran and true middle linebacker in the locker room. I probably would not. Before I would answer for sure, I will always and forever be scarred by late career Hardy Nim. Try to chase prime Michael Vick down from behind is just a nightmare that I have to relive over and over in my mind. Linebackers can get slow fast. Now Wagner, for the most part, is still wins, so it's not like an immediate no. But I need to watch his tape a little bit closer to your larger bit. I think he would pair pretty darn well in theory with Edgerrin Cooper, but man, linebackers get old really, really quick, and I would probably try to avoid that if I could. So Rich Bisaccia definitely bleeped over the team. That's just great. So, Green Bay's not saying there was a medical thing or anything. It sounds like he wanted to pursue other opportunities. So if that is in fact the case, then Shane, I think your assessment is probably fair. So proud of our U.S. women's hockey team or men's hockey team. Yeah, we won't get into all of that. Don't want to talk about it, but yeah, they both did phenomenal on the ice and brought home the gold, and can certainly appreciate the on the ice achievements. Looks like my first question before the due diligence comment disappeared was wondering if teams do draft prep on top prospects if picking in the 20s. For example, if we had a first round pick this year. Yeah, absolutely. They continue to scout those guys because a lot of your draft prep isn't just for the draft, but you're putting scouting profiles together for when players become free agents 4 years from now, or when you have the opportunity to trade for a player like a Micah Parsons. So imagine, Micah Parsons comes available in trade, and imagine Green Bay just didn't even study him because they're like, well, we're never going to be able to draft Micah Parsons. You want to have the medicals, you want to have your interviews on file, you want to have the scouting reports on file. So when, he does become available, you can go back and reference all of that. It doesn't mean that things haven't changed, that he as a player isn't more, defined than what he was coming out of college. But a lot of the scouting report stuff isn't necessarily, is he good or bad at football? It's off field, medical, how is he wired? How would he fit with the team? Is he a good locker room guy? Like all of that sort of stuff. And so you still want to do all of your due diligence on that because there's so many things. First and foremost, you don't know what's going to happen in the draft. There's times where you might think somebody's going to be gone in the top 20 and all of a sudden pick 52. Brian Branch is probably, where did he go? Brian Branch ended up being pick 45. All right. So this is a great example. Most people thought Brian Branch would be gone pick 25, maybe somewhere in that range. Imagine you as Green Bay are just like, well, we're not going to do our due diligence on Brian Branch because we don't think we're ever going to get the opportunity to take him. We're picking at pick 52. He's going to be gone in the first round. And then all of a sudden you like him a ton and he would have been first on your board, and you can trade a 4th round pick or 5th round pick to get up to pick 44 and take Brian Branch, or pick 45 and take Brian Branch. You better have a scouting report done on him to make sure. Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is actually an example of the Packers didn't do a ton of film study on Aaron Rodgers in that draft because he was expected to go 1 overall. And then if you remember, at least the story goes that Ted, the day before the draft, that they had done the other stuff and got medicals and things like that, but they didn't do, a ton of film study on him because why would they? And then the day before the draft, there was buzz that Rodgers might fall, and maybe significantly so. So Ted did a bunch of film study the day before, and they had basically come to the conclusion that, hey, if he falls, we're going to take him. And he fell and they took him. So yeah, you better do your due diligence on everyone, not just because you never know what's going to happen in the draft, but you don't know when somebody's going to come available via trade or free agency, and you want to have all of your due diligence done. Was there a Jalen Ramsey or Joe Thomas in this draft? Would we even bother looking into them? Yes. So yes, again, not to maybe draft, but you still do your process. And again, there's time put in, time put out. So you want to do your due diligence, but whereas a guy that might fall to Green Bay at pick 52, you're going to watch a ton of tape on, right? You're going to really have a great feel. Somebody that's, are they doing a ton of work on Mendoza, right? No. Do they watch probably 2 or 3 games to get a feel for him? Sure. Just to have some sort of feel, but no, they're not spending more than a cursory glance at Mendoza because there's still limited resources and you still want to kind of risk reward it. What do you think the odds are that we take a defensive tackle at 52, given how defensive tackle has been overdrafted the last couple of years and the odds in free agency are not very appealing? Well within the realm of possibility, but as is corner, as is best player available, as is offensive line, and you only got one of those. You don't have multiple, and you don't pick again till the 3rd, and then every pick after that is out of the top 100. So you want to try to go into the draft as, well-rounded of a team as you can, so you don't just have to pick for need. But defensive tackle will definitely be something that they look at very, very closely at pick 52. Worth getting on the roster even for a year or two. Is this in regards to something else? Sometimes feel like we're too smart for our own good. Liked your analogy of the dust and the microchip for Matt's offense. Have fun on vacation. Think maybe your first part of that cut out somewhere, Will, but appreciate the kind words and will definitely do my best to enjoy the vacation. What do you think the Packers signing Elijah Vera Tucker? What do you think of the Packers signing Elijah Vera Tucker? Very buy low candidate and can't stay healthy, but could be great if he does stay healthy. I think probably rather unlikely. And, injuries on the offensive line, they tend to pile up and only kind of get worse over time. If you can get him for cheap as a flyer and try to fit him in, sure. I think the other thing is he's probably a guard more than anything else. Banks is going to start at one, and you're probably penciling in Belton as the other. But if you wanted to bring him in and have him and Belton kind of go at it, we also just saw that they were kind of looking to get bigger on the offensive line, and I could be wrong. But yeah, Tucker's a little bit on the lighter side, around 308 at 6'5". Again, injuries, age and, size. I don't think he's going to be their particular cup of tea. India's Antonio Gibson an option for returner, add some running back depth if Lloyd can't go yet again. If they could get him for a cheap deal, it's not going to count against the comp pick formula. He was released, if I remember, so he shouldn't. That he could be an option, but he's probably one of those options that you don't even look at until you figure out what happens with Chris Brooks, Emmanuel Wilson in the draft. If you get post-draft and maybe you didn't get Brooks and Wilson back, maybe they're elsewhere, and you didn't get anyone in the draft and it's just Lloyd and, Pierre Strong and Josh Jacobs, then yeah, I could see them looking at him post-draft, but probably not until that point. Andy, unrelated quick question. When is your vacation? I'm heading to Orlando myself next week, and I thought it would be funny if I saw you there. It was the same time. I will be there. We leave tomorrow, and we'll get back next Monday. So, excuse me. But yeah, so I'll be there for the next a little under a week. Andy, what is it going to take for Golden to quiet the haters and naysayers? Just time, my friend. Give him time. He's going to be good. I don't understand. Like, I know people want him to play more or whatever, but when he got in, he was good. Really good at times, as we saw in the Chicago game. People have wanted a first-round pick at receiver for forever, and he certainly still very much looks the part. I don't know why anybody's anything but excited about what the future of Matthew Golden's going to bring. And we should see a lot more of them with Romeo Doubs leaving this offseason. What are you most excited about for your Universal trip? Also, my connection loves you. I know Luigi's in Florida. Sorry, if I could pack some, I would. But honestly, just most excited to be there with the family and seeing the kids' reactions to things. And, you kind of get to live vicariously through them, which is really, really fun. And, one of the things, especially with how busy I am with doing all of this and watching film and staying up late and all of that stuff, it's been a huge cognizant thing for me is to really take, these moments and take this time and just be really, really present in it. And it already feels crazy that I have a 12 and an 8-year-old. Feels like just yesterday, we were adopting our first kid and then adopting our second kid, and now they're 12 and 8. So it goes by really, really fast. So just that time and those memories is by far and away what I'm most excited for. Packers in Germany makes so much sense given so many people with German roots that settle in Wisconsin. Would be a ton of fun. I will be there. I will, especially if they go back to back. If they go London, Germany back to back, I'll be there for the 8 days or whatever. It'll be a ton of fun. I'll do a bunch of lives from some pubs in London and Germany. I'm all in. I would honestly think it'd be really, really fun, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Also, you have brainwashed my subconscious mind into wanting Luigi's Pizza. Luigi's Pizza. It's so good. Yeah, I don't even need, just honestly, like this is a totally true story. Me going to the freezer section when I was looking for frozen pizzas, the Luigi's caught my eye immediately. I'm like, you can tell that's going to be the best one. And I got it home the first time and it was insane. And then, I've tried all of their different brands and versions and they're all incredible. And it was one of those, matches made in heaven because I love them before they even knew I existed. And then they saw me tweet about it after I had a post-draft Luigi's Pizza, celebrating the end of the draft. And then they connected with me and it's been a beautiful marriage ever since. So yeah, love the partnership. They do great work, and a huge shout out to Luigi's for sponsoring our show. Would Tennessee ever consider Gary for Tavondre? No, Gary's not going to have trade value. Tavondre Sweat probably has second round trade value. Gary probably has none. If he does, it's 7th or conditional pick. So, a second round pick in Rashan Gary for T'Vondre Sweat, sure, that could be something maybe, but your more likely scenario is just a second and a young player for Sweat and Gary gets cut. Thanks for the super chat though, Kurt. Appreciate that. 2 Euro games would kill an already dicey season coming up. I think honestly, if you get Miami and London, all right, that should be a win. So let's say you play your first, 5 weeks of the season. You get Miami and London. That should be a win. And then you get Detroit in Germany. Instead of having to play them in Detroit, that's a win for Green Bay game. I would much rather play Detroit in Germany, Detroit in Detroit. And I know Jordan's had success in Detroit and whatever, but I'd rather play that in a neutral site, big time game. And you're probably staying over from London following a win against Miami. And they are probably coming fresh to Germany. That's probably an advantage for Green Bay as well. And then you probably have the bye after that. So week 6, Miami in London, week 7, Germany, a road game in, against Detroit in Germany. And then week 8 bye, middle of the season. I don't think that's actually as bad as what people might think. Now, you don't want week 9 to be, a massive matchup. If you could get a relatively easy matchup after that, that might be nice. And you certainly would want a home game. A home game would probably be great, but that to me is not unworkable. That is a reason. And I think they would be fine in that scenario, especially if you're giving up a road game in Detroit. So just my 2 cents on it. Pick that they could get for Reed, it's probably an early 3rd. Maybe it's a second. If you get a second for Reed, my guess it's like a second for Reed and like a 5th would be, something in that range probably feels about right for me. Like a late second for some team that really wants a wide receiver because they only know they get him for 1 year and then they have to. And that if you trade a second for a player, you're going to give him a contract extension because you're not trading a second for 1 year of Jayden Reed. So you lose out on some of the leverage of the contract negotiations with that player. So I think a second for like Reed and a 5th is Germany and France would be awesome. That's another one I would definitely be making the trip for. I have hopes that Banks' injuries really hurt his 2025 play and he will bounce back for us in 2020. Past the final, I think it was 8 games of the season for Aaron Banks of plus 1.25. And that was through his final. Now he did have a negative 1.1 grade in there in week 15. So here was his final grades starting in week 11 when it seemed like he was getting healthier. Plus 0.35, plus 0.35, plus 0.5, plus 0.65. That was a really good 4-game stretch for Aaron Banks. Then he had a negative 1.1, a really bad game kind of out of nowhere, plus 0.2, then a negative 0.65. I think that was the Baltimore game. Then didn't play against Minnesota and honestly was one of the highest graded players against the Bears with a plus 0.95 grade in the playoffs. A total of plus 1.25 over his last 8 games and definitely played much better. If you extrapolate that through a 17-game season, it's about a 2.65 grade. That's a really good grade for a starting guard. Not all pro, not Pro Bowl, but that is a really good, solid, sound starter, which is that worth the, almost 80 million contract they gave him? No, but can you live with that if that's what you get for a year? Absolutely. That's a not bad outcome if he can play at that level. So there is some hope there. Brian Gutekunst explained that the salary cap makes teams build through the draft. Why hasn't he drafted these premium players who are definitely top 5 at their position compared to other teams? I mean, it's easier said than done, but it has been an issue that he needs to be better at, especially in, with his early picks. I will say Jordan is damn near close to a top 5 quarterback in the league. If he's not, he's probably 6 or 7, but he's damn close to that conversation. Watson's not a top 5 wide receiver by any means, but he's a really good number 1 wide receiver, in my opinion. Tucker Kraft is going to be a top 5 tight end if he's not already. Zach Tom is a top 5 right tackle. He's a top 5 right tackle. I don't think you can put him quite in the top 5 tackle conversation, but definitely top 5 right tackle and definitely top 10 tackle. Then you have, I think Edgerrin Cooper has the ability, he wasn't last year, but I think he has the ability to be a top 5 linebacker discussion and at some pretty important positions, including quarterback. So, give that credit where it's due. and, whatever you want to say about everything else. But yes, he does need to be better early in drafts until 2028 because they don't have a first. Goody talked up Rashan Gary again at his presser. Unfortunately, he's staying. Again, GMs in their job description, it's important that they lie. Brian Gutekunst right now is probably under the impression that he's going to move on. He wants Rashan Gary to have a trade market. If he goes out there and says, yes, we're going to be moving on from Rashan Gary, every team knows that and has no interest in trading for him. With that stuff, you are best to keep your cards close to your chest and not reveal what you have. Important as possible to pump up those players as much as he can publicly so that if he calls the team and he's like, wants to either trade for Rashan Gary, has interest, that he has we really like him. We have no interest. So if he's trying to get as much value, exactly that in a public press conference. Predictions, Brown are the two that I'm kind of keeping a close eye on. Prediction standpoint, May's not get one of the top centers in free agency. Just the draft. They don't have a Jacob Monk. I don't think they're going to go with Elton Jenkins in any real way. It has to be a free agent. No other free agents really make sense or even good enough to kind of just plug in there and play. So I'm going to say either Sean Ryan, Connor McGovern, or Cade Mays is your starting center next year. D-line cost Green Bay late in the season, yet everyone only focuses on the shiny new cornerback. Which room would you focus on if good prospects are in limited supply? I still think Nagler and I talked about this, so you guys can check that out next Monday when it comes out. If you're a member, you can check it out now. But when he gets any sort of operating room, you have a unbelievable tight end, a great wide receiver room, and that end of game situations, red zone, if they can just protect and block up front. So offensive line is my 1A, and then corner is my 3rd. But I do think you need to try to find a way to upgrade all 3 of those if you can. Do you think we will interview any? And you want to get as much information on the entire defensive line. Hog is needed to protect against the run. You don't take this guy's early pitch. I'm not Lee Hammer, but Hammersbach stuffing defensive tackle for sure. Yeah, again, I think the Jacobs will be back, but I thought the same for Jones. So whatever he looks like now. I think he can be fine as a sort of Lucas Patrick-esque guard center swing player, and kind of anything other than that. I'm all for trading 52 to get an impact. Yeah, you can take those ideas and probably completely put them aside. I can't be your boss, but Rashan Gary does not have trade value. And again, if there is, it is a conditional 7th round pick or maybe a 7th round pick. It's non-existent. So to say that you would get something in return that would be of value outside of, again, getting a 7th that maybe Green Bay can flip for something else, there's no viable player that they're going to get in return for Rashan Gary that you're going to be excited about. Green Bay scouts aren't exactly pouring over Arvell Reese tape, I'm sure, but they'll take a look. Again, they predict 2 Packers that break out this year and 2 Packers that are surprising disappointments. All right, breakout. I'm just kind of going through the roster in my mind. I'm going to say, I know one for sure. I'm trying to figure out my second one. I'm going to say Matthew Golden's the obvious one. He early and late in the season when he was healthy. Let's see. Okay, I have one already, and I got to think of one more. Don't want to go that direction. Well, my one for sure is Anthony Belton. I don't think he's going to take any sort of significant step. So I'll say he'll be one disappointment. And then I don't know that I have a great answer for the other one. I'll say Devontae Wyatt, that he just never quite lives up to the lofty expectations of being a first-round pick. So I'll say Anthony Belton and Devontae Wyatt disappoint to some extent in 2026. Can you explain what exactly is wrong with the Packers special teams and what would even fix it? I can, but I did a whole episode on it. So I'm not going to rehash everything because I spent 30 minutes going over it, but I will post it in the link. I'll post a link for you. Let's see if I can get this for you. Here we go. It's called The Packers Must Fix Their Special Teams Once and For All. And I spent 30 minutes going over everything that Green Bay can do to fix it. So there is your link. And we went over it in great detail. All right, we're going to come right back. But I do want to get to our sleeper picks for what is probably going to be our last live sleeper picks of the season. Excited about these one. We got some basketball tonight, and I like these picks. Tyler Hero, more than 17.5 points against Milwaukee. He always seems to do well against Milwaukee. So Tyler Hero, more than 17.5 points. Chet Holmgren, fewer than 17.5 points against Toronto. Not usually a big-time scorer, and I think Toronto will defend him well. And then Kobe White, more than 16.5, his former team. He's making his debut for Charlotte, and I think he's going to be, out for blood against his former team in Chicago. So more than 16.5 points plus assists for Kobe White. So those are my three. I'm going with Hero, Holmgren, and White. You can make those picks as well, or you can do something totally different. They've got all the sports out there. It's a ton of fun. You can get a 100% match up to $100 by utilizing code PACKADAY. Again, 100% match up to $100 by utilizing code PACKADAY. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper for details. They're available in over 25 states nationwide. So what are you waiting for? Check out Sleeper as soon as you have a chance. Back to our regularly scheduled program. We were at 321. All right. In 5 years, who will be the better quarterback, Mendoza or Cam Ward? All right. These are always difficult. If you were to ask me to compare the prospects coming out of college, I liked Ward more than I liked Mendoza. And I did watch Mendoza's tape. Yes, I try to watch all of the top 150. So I did watch all of Mendoza. Mendoza to me is the upside is Jared Goff with more mobility. And so there is definitely an upside there. I will say, not impressed with Ward's first year. I think it's a terrible situation to be in, but I'll still go with Ward. But after Ward's first year, I would maybe lean Mendoza. I mean, I could make an argument for Mendoza, but if I was just comparing their college tape, I liked Ward more than I liked Mendoza coming out. Andy, why do you think that nobody wants to bring Quay back? I thought he took a step up this year and is a great linebacker. All right, here's the Quay Walker experience in a nutshell. First round pick, probably overdrafted. First 2 years, didn't make a ton of impact. Middle of the third year, Jeff Hafley's first year, you get the new linebackers coach who's now Anthony Campanelli, who's now the Jacksonville defensive coordinator. Middle of third year, I go out on YouTube right here on this channel and say, I am done with the Quay Walker experience. Give me something different. I'm over it. I'm ready to be done. And literally the next two games are the probably two best games that he has played in his career. And then his third one was good. And all of a sudden he's playing really great football. And so I'm eating my words immediately. This is awesome. And I'm happy to eat them. I'm so glad that he's playing well. Clicks in the second half of year 3 under Anthony Campanelli and in Jeff Hafley's defense. Then he gets hurt and he misses a few games. Maybe it was more than that, but at least a few games. He comes back at the end of the season and he didn't quite look himself again. And he looked kind of like meh, Quay Walker. Comes back. Anthony Campanelli's gone. He's year 2 in Jeff Hafley's defense. And I thought he played solid to good football through the first half of the year. Not great, not amazing, but solid football. And then I thought in the second half of the year, there was kind of a dip again, and he was fine. It wasn't bad. It wasn't good. It was fine. And that is your 4 years of Quay experience. 2.5 years of mostly frustration, couple peaks here and there, but mostly frustration. 3-4 games of some of the best football of his career, an injury, mediocre, good football, meh football. And it's just meh. It's just meh. You kind of know what you're getting. It's not bad. It's not great. It could be worse. It could be better. It's fine. And that's why I've kind of said all along, I think this comes down to the dollars and cents of it all. If he goes for 8, 9, 10 million or more on the open market, see ya. Have fun. Awesome that you got the contract. Thanks for all of your contributions in Green Bay. If it's 6, 7 million, like a 2-year deal or less, bring him back. You could do a lot worse than Quay Walker on that type of deal. And he's a good, solid linebacker. Nothing spectacular. Pairs pretty well with Edgerrin Cooper overall. You can definitely live with him on that point, at that type of deal. So I just think, to me, it just comes down to what kind of contract he wants. If it's 4 years, 32, 4 years, 40, I'm all the way out. If it's 2 years, 11, all the way in. So I just think it depends on what that contract looks like. Any chance Goot trades back into the end of the first round? There's always a chance, but the ultimate answer here is no. So just kind of let's look at this. So if they traded their first and four or their second and fourth, they could probably get, I mean, it says end of the second, but I actually don't think that's true. I think probably Over the Cap one has that wrong. Let's use the other one here. So this one would be, yeah, I think this was probably better. If they traded their second and third, it's probably worth the 35th pick in the draft, right around there. Again, it just depends on what trade value chart you're looking, but their second and third combined probably gets them to the beginning of the second round. Maybe pick 32, maybe pick 32. And even then, it's probably like a second, a third, and like a fifth for pick 32. And I don't think Goody is going to have the appetite to trade a second and a third and a fifth and just be left with a first, a fourth, a sixth, and 2 sevenths or whatever it is. That's just, you're completely lacking in capital. If anything, I expect them to try to get more picks and not up. It would have to take somebody that like they had like a top 10 grade on, top 15 grade on, that's sitting there at pick 32 and they just can't believe it and they just have to go get them. And if it is, so be it. Could they? Yes. Do I expect it? I would be pretty stunned overall. Watch the Packers take another Georgia D lineman. Definitely possible. I think there's a guy that's projected in the second round. Listen, they're going to take a lot of Georgia players over the year, as is everyone else. Like Georgia's going to have a powerhouse program probably for the foreseeable future. Don't be shocked when they draft Georgia players. Alabama, same thing. Like you're going to be drafted. Ohio State, you're going to get a lot of players from there. I think fans like myself get frustrated at the Packers due to them doing just enough to be the dark horse contender, but never enough. I mean, I don't know what more you want them to do than going out and signing a 4-year, $77 million player, drafting a wide receiver in the first round, drafting a signing a $15 million per year player, and trading 2 first-round picks and a established player for Micah Parsons in one offseason. I know you don't like the free agent signings, especially in hindsight, but that's 2 massive free agent additions, a first-round wide receiver, and a all-in move for one of the best defensive players all in football in the same offseason. And the year before that, they signed Xavier McKinney and Josh Jacobs. In the last, those 2 years, those are 6 as all-in moves as you can possibly get. So those are not complacent moves. Those are not, we're fine with stuff. That is giving huge contracts to Josh Jacobs, Xavier McKinney, Aaron Banks, Nate Hobbs, Micah Parsons, and again, spending a first-round pick on Matthew Golden as well. That is aggressive to a T. That is not complacency in any way, shape, or form. So I disagree with the overarching thought process entirely. You may not like the results. The results are not what you want it to be, but those are aggressive moves. What do you think Golden's career trajectory looks like? Top 25 wide receiver, top 20, top 10, top 5 elite. Who's a good pro comp? I think Brandon Cooks is a pretty good pro comp. I think a career kind of like that. And they're not apples to apples in like overall, but I think his type of career, hopefully just with one team and not like 8 different teams. But I think Brandon Cooks type career is probably a pretty good career, comp for him, and definitely within that top 25 of wide receivers. Andy, do you think that nobody wants to bring Quay back? I thought, we talked about that. If Green Bay makes a major move this offseason, like signing a Xavier McKinney or trading for a Micah Parsons, what would your prediction be? I think Cade Mays makes the most sense on a pretty decent, or Connor McGovern on a pretty decent sized center deal to get a really good starting center. That'd be my prediction. I could see maybe a Leo Chanel, but that's not a huge move, but that'd be a pretty big move at linebacker. I could see a Monteric Brown or a move at corner. I think they'll dabble at defensive tackle, but there's just not a ton out there. Cade Mays to me is the one. Again, I'm not a huge Cade Mays guy, although I do need to watch a little bit more tape of him, but I could see him or Connor McGovern being a real solution at center for them. Yes, what would be a ton of fun. I would love it. Would absolutely love it. Sorry if it's buffering. I don't know why. It's totally good on my end. My apologies. I think we only got a few questions left. Sorry if it's lagging a little bit. Because I think if I leave now, I'm gonna have to restart everything, and I don't know that that's the best experience either. So my apologies. All right. Hopefully it's not as bad right now. Oh, okay, so the lagging's got a little bit better. Sound okay, but lots of buffering and big parts ended up skipped. Cheapers. I'm very sorry. That's a bummer. Maybe try Twitch. That's so weird that I don't know why it didn't go through. My apologies, guys. Really sorry about that. I guess I should have reset everything before I came in. I'll try to do that a little bit more often coming in. Can you guys hear me okay right now? Okay, no lag on your end. Okay. Well, we'll continue. Again, not too many questions left. All right. Sorry, guys. Really appreciate the heads up, and sorry it wasn't working. The 49ers released Trent Williams. Do you think the Packers would go all in to get him? I don't think they would. I would definitely take a look at it. I also don't expect the 49ers to release Trent Williams, but it'd be a fun addition, that's for sure. I do have the Twitch questions up as well. So we got you. I promise. Thank you for the super chat and appreciate the FYI, Amy. And sorry I didn't see this a little bit earlier. All right. At least Amanda was hearing it. Appreciate you, Amanda. Which positions should we target via free agency and which via the draft? I think this is probably a tough question to answer just because I think it matters a ton who's available. But what I would say is I think you want to try to address as much prior to the draft as you can to round out your team. I think corner is most likely in the draft. I think you're going to want to find probably a starting center in free agency. And then I would expect maybe a Roy Lopez or something on the defensive line just to give you something and then try to address it in the draft as well with maybe another position or two. Shout out AJ Styles, full-time dad mode. I'm still holding out hope we get an AEW run at some point. Obviously looking a lot less likely, but I would love one last run going against the Will Ospreys and maybe getting Daniel Bryan for one more match, and a Kenny Omega match would be unbelievable. So I would love just like a 1 year, like 5 match run and just do the best of the best in AEW. And then after that's done, do one final match in TNA against whatever opponent that he wants, probably in WWE because they have that connection. And getting one more with Samoa Joe would be great in AEW as well. And then so do a 1 year quick like 5 or 6 pay-per-view tournament or tour in AEW, and then just one more match in TNA, and then call it a career from there. But if he's retired, congrats to him, and he certainly deserves it. Glad there's no lag. All good now. Good. Glad it's better. And for Bo Hunt, it's not good. I don't know. I'm sorry, guys. Not the end of the world. Have a good holiday when the time comes. Appreciate you. We'll be heading out tomorrow. Ever thought of doing a Madden rating episode where you rate current Packers starters overall versus what Madden gives? I did something like that one time, or just critiqued Madden's grades, and nobody watched it. So probably not again, but it was fun to do. Maybe I'll do it as like a members only episode at some point or something. If WWE, I haven't followed the rumors lately. If WWE in fact did re-sign him, and yeah, then it's probably done. But I would love him back in some way. Have fun at Universal Studios and Disney with the family. Andrew, appreciate that a ton. I think we did get through the chats. Sorry for any lagging or issues. My apologies for that. I'll try to do a better job before the live shows of making sure I reset the router and the computer and everything right before I come on. Because if my just checking my internet right now, I've got 360 megs down, and we'll check the upload here in a second. But 93 up. No, 450 megabytes up. So my internet's insane right now. You can't really get better than that. So I'll just try to make sure I restart everything in the future. So my apologies for that, guys. Andy, this is a member from My Autism Connection. We're so happy to work with you. Also have a great time at Orlando. Go Pack Go. Thank you so much for that, and excited to partner with you guys as well. We'll definitely announce more of that coming up in the near future. Caring about Madden is several levels deeper in terms of football degeneracy, which is exactly what we're here for, Pale Shelter. We want that level of degeneracy. We support that level of degeneracy. You're welcome, Mr. Heebs. Thanks for being here. Do you think Jordan Love would get more respect credit from national media if he was more vocal? If he had a Nixon-style soundbite, for example? I actually think for the most part, he is getting a decent amount of love on the national side. It goes back and forth, but I actually think nationally almost gets more love than he does local at times. But I think he's close, but I would like to see him still get a little bit more credit than what he's gotten so far. All right, friends, I will be back next week for live shows. No happy hour this Friday. That was obviously today's what we were doing. I will be out on vacation, as mentioned. We have got a full line of episodes. Paul Farrington show tomorrow, if I remember correctly. Dusty Evely Thursday. I think Pete Doherty Friday. Tyler Brooks Saturday. Maggie Loney Sunday. And then on Monday is Aaron Nagler. Tuesday is likely going to be Ross and Jacob doing a recap of the NFL Combine from a Packers standpoint. Although I may do an episode for Tuesday as well. We'll see. And then I'll be back for sure with regular episodes that are not pre-recorded next Wednesday. And then we'll do live shows, both members only and happy hour next week as well. A couple others came in. If you could super boost one player to Hall of Fame performance level, who would it be? I say Sorrell. Hall of Fame. Trying to think. So you want, who's the youngest player on the team? Just somebody that's young and under contract for a long time and at a premium position. Let's go. Matthew Golden's got 4 years of team control. That would be, if he was a Hall of Fame wide receiver, that'd be pretty great. Colin Oliver or Barron Sorrell are good because they're young, 3 years of team control and at a premium position. Barron Sorrell is actually a sneaky, really good answer because you have 3 years of team control. Yeah, I would. Barron Sorrell is probably the right answer because you get 3 years of super cheap control and then you can re-sign him after that. He's got a huge career ahead of him. He's 23 years old. Yeah, and all of a sudden everyone else is still good. So you still get good LVN. You still have Micah. You still have everyone else is good. Colin Oliver or Barron Sorrell are probably really great answers. Sorrell being bigger. So yeah, I actually, when you first said Sorrell, I'm like, that doesn't make, it actually probably makes the most sense of anything. I like that answer. A funny answer just for kicks would be Kyle McCord. Kyle McCord would be a very funny answer in that one. Dang, you don't think Golden could be like a prime Diggs type player? I don't think quite that, but if I were just guessing / betting, I think a top 25, top 20 wide receiver with a Brandon Cooks type career is probably on the trajectory. That's a really good wide receiver. It's a really good wide receiver. Appreciate you, Mr. Heebs. And Sorrell is definitely a good answer. All right, I'm getting out of here now. Appreciate you guys a ton. I'll talk to you all very, very soon. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.